to you from Nakuru City, and on 8th this month, advocates and legal practitioners declared a mass protest symbolizing solidarity with the judiciary over the executive excesses. And remember, all this was to strongly criticize President William Ruto over alleged attacks on the judiciary. And remember, President William Ruto is being accused of attacking judicial officers for what he termed as undermining his key projects, among them being the housing, or rather the affordable housing program. And also, I will be talking to residents in regard to this, what they feel about this whole matter. But also remember, yesterday, Chief Justice Martha Koome in a press conference said that these continuous judicial attacks, or rather attacks on the judiciary and continuous disobedience of court orders means that this means that the respect for the judiciary has really gone down. Therefore, I'll be talking to residents in this regard to tell me what they feel about this particular matter. Kimani, allow me to talk to you. We get to know what really you think about this particular matter. We have seen President William Ruto being told that he attacked the judiciary. What do you think about this whole matter as a person and as a Kenyan?
Thank you, TV47. It's really sad that we have ushered in a regime that does not respect the rule of law, a regime that is sliding into anarchy, a regime that is bringing chaos into this country, willingly or unwillingly, through the disrespect of the law. None other but the President of the Republic of Kenya has shown sheer disrespect with the decisions of the judiciary, which is supposed to be an independent arm of the government. We've seen previous presidents. We've seen Mwai Kibaki respect the judicial decisions. There are several roads that he would have done in Othaya, but was stopped by the same judiciary, and he completed his term without those roads being attended to. But he performed. So they cannot tag their performance on the work of the judiciary. The judiciary is doing its work and must and ought to be respected. We've seen the deputy president claiming that there is one officer in the judiciary and goes by naming her. She's a family man. She has kids. She has a family. Then you go and kind of tarnish her name in front of the public. If today I become the president, I cannot go punishing my previous teachers who punished me for not scoring well in maths. That is exactly what this regime is doing. They have climbed to power through this particular judiciary, and I want to warn them and warn the judiciary. Judiciary, you midwifed the election of these people. You midwifed their presidency. It's time they start saying that you are smelling like kids of goats. Yeah, and this is the time now they want to tear you and prepare a meal out of you. You prepared it for them. They talked of hot air. They talked of wild goose chase. It is the same today. And I want to tell Kenyans, it is high time we joined the judiciary. Because if we don't do this, the country is sliding into anarchy.
And as a Kenyan, are you concerned, or rather, do you fear if the judiciary is being controlled by the executive?
Not just fearing. We are actually prepared to go back to the streets and tell these people enough is enough. We need a bold citizen. We need a bold judiciary, because 3-4 people cannot slide this country into its initial dark days. We've seen the executive castrate the parliament. We will not allow the judiciary to be castrated. We as Kenyans are watchful and will not allow these people to castrate us. Yes, over our dead bodies. All Kenyans should respect the rule of law. And nobody is immune to the rule of law.
As a Kenyan, what do you think is the solution to this particular standoff?
Sobering up. These guys need to sober up. Yeah? They need to respect the 3 arms of the government. Respect parliament. This parliament was twisted to come up with policies that are punitive to Kenyans. Watchful Kenyans have gone to court against those punitive policies. The levy, the health insurance. These are punitive policies. If parliament, through twisting, did their job, through the executive, judiciary is not the same kind of a baby to get twisted like the parliament. We know parliament sometimes, they live in the pockets of these people. Yeah.
So you support the judiciary?
I support the judiciary 100%. Yeah, and I want to tell those people who are against the judiciary, especially the deputy president, hey, umekanyaga pabaya na wachana na Esther Maina. Na wewe ulikuwa deputy president through an accident. Yes. Stop extending your accident to the judiciary. Yes.
Thank you so much. Bwana Irungu, come closer. Tell me, what do you think of the president saying that he will disobey the courts, or rather saying that threatening the judges? What do you make out of that?
Yeah, good morning, Chichi, my viewer. I think that is a rather unfortunate gesture from the president, because I believe Kenya as a sovereign state must be governed and ruled by the rule of law. And we cannot afford to disobey the courts. Otherwise, this country is going to slide into anarchy. We don't want this country to be ruled by the rule of the jungle. That's why we passed the new constitution in 2010. And I believe everybody, starting from the president to the small child in nursery school, we should all respect the rule of law. And it is rather unfortunate. Although I cannot overrule that there is corruption in this country, we all know that there is corruption in this country. And even in the courts, like I was looking at the Chief Justice when he was addressing the media yesterday, and she was saying that they have already sacked 71 judicial officers. And there are other judicial officers and some judges who are being investigated by the Judicial Service Commission. So that is to mean that there is still corruption in the judiciary. However, I dislike when the government is attacking the judiciary. One arm of the government. Judiciary is an arm of the government. And I believe that the judiciary should be allowed to be an independent arm of the government, just like the executive and the legislature. Also, I want to urge the government to allow the three arms of the government to act independently. Even like parliament. Sometimes the parliament is made to pass rules that are not beneficial to the common man. For example, there was that bill of the finance bill that was not liked by many people because it is punitive. We also see the issue of affordable housing, whereby many people are complaining that they cannot afford to be deducted the deductions for affordable housing. Yes, I believe that the affordable housing project is viable and it is good. However, the government and the government of Kenya Kwanza should look for money elsewhere. They should not overtax people, because already people are feeling the pinch. And one rule of boxing is that when your opponent is on the ground, you don't continue punching him. At least allow him to wake up. Right now, Kenyans are feeling the pinch of the taxes. Kenyans are feeling the pinch of the economy, because the economy is doing badly right now. So when you continue overtaxing them, imposing punitive taxes, like now we have seen some companies are relocating from this country to other countries like Uganda, Tanzania, because of punitive taxes. When our manufacturing sector is shifting base to go to Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, that is something to worry. Because when they go away, they are they are allowing our people not to have jobs. Yeah.
I'll ask you a question that I asked Bwana Kimani wa Kimani. Are you concerned, or do you fear if the judiciary is controlled by the executive?
Yeah, that is something to fear. The judiciary must be made to stay independent, so that they pass laws that are beneficial to the mwananchi, so that they can feel they are not being controlled. We don't want to slide back to the regime of to the Moi regime, whereby we used to see that judges used to be called in the morning and told there is this and this case. Can you pass the judgment this week? No, judges must be allowed to be independent. The judiciary must be allowed to be independent. Yeah.
The solution to this particular standoff, what do you think, briefly?
I think that the president has an opportunity to call the judiciary officers, especially the Chief Justice and the Judicial Service Commission. Let them sit down, have a dialogue, and maybe come up with an amicable solution. Because when you see the president and the deputy president attacking the judiciary on the roads, and then we see, on the other hand, the Judicial Service Commission, and especially the Chief Justice, attacking the government on the other hand. I think that is not good for this country. We need to see them working hand in hand because this is one government. And the legislature, the executive and the judiciary must work together so for the common good of this country and for the common good of the Monanchi. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bwana Irongo. Bwana Benson, come closer, let's talk. I want you to talk to me more especially. What do you make of the president saying that he will disobey the court orders and also threatening judges? What do you make as a Kenyan?
I think my name is Benson Masharia. I'm a resident of Nakuru. One of the key concerns of us, even as state stakeholders and all that, is the comments by the president. When you start saying that you are going to disobey the court orders, it is a recipe for chaos. That means even if today Wanjiko on the street decide they are not going to allow to disobey, they are going to disobey all the laws of Kenya. Why will the president take the people? It is still in the same courts. What we are saying, we must agree that in both the three arms of government, there is corruption. In executive, there is corruption. In the judiciary, there is corruption. In the legislature, there is corruption. What we don't need to victimize one arm of government like the judiciary, and we now start saying that we are going to say they are the voice of Wanjiko. They are the last resort for any citizen in this republic. If you are aggrieved by the parliament, if you are aggrieved by the executive, you run to the courts. Because the Constitution of Kenya 2010 gave them the jurisprudence to be able to stand in the gaps for Kenyans and be able to protect Kenyans in whichever way.
So far, so good. What do you think is the solution? Because we've seen President William Ruto, of course, speaking against the judiciary saying that the president is attacking them. What do you think is the proper solution to this particular standoff?
The president must stop chest thumping. The executive must behave and understand without the judiciary, they still cannot operate. We have seen before where there have been attempts to muzzle the judiciary. It has ended badly. Because if today, again, the same government runs to the same courts to seek for orders for them to be able to do something, and then they are denied by the same court, they will come back to us, Wanjiko, and start complaining. The issue is the government must be able to agree, they must respect the courts, they must obey the court orders, so that if they have any difference, they must come together. Like we have seen them having dinner, we have seen the Mother Kome having to go into State House. Let them sit down and come up with solutions to the judicial problems that we are facing. But we shall not allow as citizens the muzzling of our judiciary so that it becomes like a kangaroo court that will be dictated by anybody on what to do.
Bwana Benson, President William Ruto said that the judiciary is undermining his key projects, more especially one of them being the affordable housing program. What do you think? Is it true that, or rather, what do you think? Is it true that the judiciary could be indeed undermine his key projects?
No. What the president must agree is that you are not a master of everything. As the government, you are not a master of everything, that you know everything. There are steps they have taken and they have put the cart before the horse. It is the work of the judiciary to correct the steps. For example, there is the Climate Change Act that was done within 1 week. On Tuesday, it was discussed. On the Wednesday, the second reading. On Thursday. That means that they never went through public participation. And me, as a citizen, I need to rush to court and say my input was never given. And some of these declarations that have been given by the judiciary, they have centered around issues of public participation. The government must allow. They cannot twist people. They cannot go back behind the scene and come up with policies that they think they will help Kenya. They must consult us. We are we are the stakeholders. So they cannot purport now they know everything about everybody. We will run to the same courts, seek orders until we get conservatory orders, until they learn to consult and follow procedure in any development they want to do.
A very important question. Do you fear if the judiciary is controlled by the executive as a Kenyan?
Initially, when this government came in, they sweared in the judges immediately. Those who were not sworn during President Uhuru's time. And for us who are stakeholders, we were fearing that at the end of the day, they were trying to buy the loyalty of the judiciary to supporting them. But we are happy the judiciary never went that way. They decided that at the end of the day, whether you did that to us, we are going to be an independent institution. And that is exactly what has happened. Because we have not had where any judge has been called to convict somebody or to be able to sentence somebody. What we are going to say, even when they work together, they must work together with within parameters of not interfering with one another.
In the contrary, some Kenyans feel that the judiciary is too corrupt, and President William Ruto is in the front line of ensuring that the corruption is out. What do you think of this? Because they feel that the judiciary is trying to cover up for themselves, bearing in mind that it is a corrupt department. What do you think?
What we can say, we are not going again also to stand here and say that judiciary is clean. It is not. There are also rotten potatoes inside the judiciary that needs to be sorted out. We have seen judges being interdicted by JSC. We have seen some of them even, like you heard Mother Koome yesterday giving a report that there are several judicial officers who have been taken, they have been indicted for various crimes within the judiciary. This one must be stemmed. We are not saying the judiciary is clean, because even Mother Koome must clean the house, must make sure that cartels have been removed along the judiciary, that maybe somehow they may also be working with cahoots with certain activists to be able to frustrate government when it comes to working and how it's supposed to work. So the judiciary must be clean.
What do you think the president should do so far so good?
I think the president must sit down with the judiciary. The president must agree. This country belongs to all of us as Kenyans, that any issue they must do, they must ensure issues of public participation. Otherwise, if they keep disregarding Kenyans, they will start projects, they will start initiatives that some of us and policies that we feel the parliament have been twisted to pass, and we will still run to the judiciary. So the president need to actually have some level of jurisprudence, and the advisors must be able to advise the president accordingly, so that we don't have this issue of fighting or back and forth.
All right. Thank you, Bona Benson. Therefore, Stan, those are sentiments from locals in this particular county, of course, explaining more on what they feel about this particular matter regarding the judiciary. But also in a similar matter, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said that on Thursday he will file a petition seeking the removal of Esther Maina, that is Justice Esther Maina, for what he said that she unceremoniously declared his fortune proceeds of crime. But also he said that this particular move was meant to taint his image. So we wait and see what really transpires with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Go ahead and file the petition. And until then, I call it a wrap up and hand over to you, Stan. My name is Chichi Josephine.
All right, thank you for that, Chichi Josephine, pamoja na Eliud Karanja, the camera person there, for amazing work in Nakuru. We'll be following up on the whole judiciary tiff with the executive, with our correspondents, just to understand what is your voice there as well. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back to have more details on our news diary. it. I promised we'll be taking a look at the news diary this particular morning, just to see what is expected in our subsequent bulletins, and if we can really have it in our diary this particular morning. First off, President William Ruto will be in Nandi County this particular morning, and just having so first off, visiting for a development tour, and this comes in the backdrop of him having touring various counties to launch the affordable housing project, among other projects. So today in Nandi County, he'll be commissioning an ICT hub, as well as the Nandi County affordable housing project. Let's flip the page. Moving on, Azimio leader Raila Odinga will continue with his Western and Nyanza tour today. Raila is expected to hold a delegates meeting in Gisembai and thereafter proceed to Mbale town and later Emuhaya. I'll be following up on that and telling you what the outcome of this particular meeting will be. Let's cross over to matters political parties and into ODM. First of all, ODM parties grassroots recruitment expected to take place in Vihiga. So this entire week it is in Western region, and then cross over to Coast region as of next week. From ODM party to Wiper party, and around noon, Wiper party, as we flip our news diary this morning, Wiper party is expected to hold a special National Executive Council, the NEC meeting, at around noon today at the party's headquarters. This, even as Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is eyeing for the house on the hill, that is the State House, and continuing with his race for 2027. An interesting bit there. We'll be following up on that as well. Other highlights for today. Yesterday, there's this particular the rising femicide cases. The FIDA Kenya, as well as university student leaders, is expected to hold a press briefing to address the concern on the rising cases of femicide. And more context on this particular story. So police have begun investigations into the gruesome murder of an unknown woman at an Airbnb along TRM Drive off Thika Road, whose badly mutilated and dismembered body was discovered Sunday morning. The identity of the victim is still a mystery, as the victim's head is missing. Investigators are holding 2 suspects to help in the ongoing investigation, as Mwege William tells us.
The identity of a murdered woman believed to be in her 20s is still a mystery, as investigators at the Kasarani police station burned the midnight oil to unravel this enigma, a task made harder by the issue of a missing head. The body parts were discovered wrapped inside plastic bags and stuffed in a litter bin. Detectives have lifted the prints from the deceased fingers and forwarded them to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation Forensic Laboratory in a bid to establish her identity. Also under analysis is CCTV footage from the scene. Further, police are holding 2 suspects, including the owner of the apartment, to improve the murky details surrounding the identity of the main suspect, who is believed to be male. Investigators familiar with the case have observed that the deceased could have been murdered elsewhere, as the Airbnb room which the main suspect had leased was found to be squeaky clean, with no trace of signs of a struggle or even blood stains. Police officers are also scratching their heads over the real number of culprits, citing the level of mutilation and dismemberment observed on the body. Mwege William, TV 47.
Right, thank you for that, Mwege William. Now, you now need to present your valid ID upon entering any commercial accommodation and residential buildings, and that your identification details would be recorded accurately and even retained until you depart the premises. Furthermore, all security arrangements, including CCTV cameras, are ordered to be in correct working order, a security OB and an updated record of all comings and goings. This, among other changes, according to the Ministry of Interior, is in response to the alarming increase in criminal activity, including murder within residential buildings, accommodation lodgings, and hospitality platforms. And this is a conversation that you definitely do not want to miss around 11 a.m. at TV 47 Matukio, piloted by our nahodha atakuwa Paul Kirobi, having a panel on the same, just discussing matters on this particular, the whole rising femicide cases, and what really the country needs to be, or rather what needs to be done on the same. Right, and hopefully trying to link up with our Naivasha correspondent, that is Willie Dennis Njiru, just to link us with SecGen, that is Francis Atwoli, who is around that particular area on the same. Now, as the tourism sector aims to increase the numbers of tourists both locally and internationally, the Kenya Wildlife Service has announced their plan to preserve the black rhino species by moving the 21 endangered species from the Nairobi National Park to the Loisaba Conservancy Rhino Sanctuary.
Rhinos are often mistaken with the white rhinos, but the two species have some notable differences. In terms of size, white rhinos are generally larger than black rhinos, and they can weigh up to 2.5 tons. Another difference is the shape of their horns. The front horn of a white rhino is usually longer and more prominent, while the black rhino's front horn tends to be shorter and more hooked. The government has spearheaded efforts to preserve this species by constructing a rhino conservancy sanctuary. Some of the challenges faced by the endangered species are overcrowding of their habitat, which limited their movement and resulted to fighting. Poaching of this species has been rampant, and thus the need of Kenya Wildlife Service to relocate them to a safer habitat. For TV47, I am Natasha Wairemo.
Right, our next story has to deal with what we were taking a look at during the whole cartoon review on page 15 of the Daily Nation, the whole weak shilling in the foreign exchange market. The shilling depreciation against the US dollar has continued to persist as the Kenya shilling and the US dollar mean exchange rate has crossed the 160 mark for the first time in history. The shilling has lost 1.8% relative to the dollar since the year started, which is primarily attributed to the ongoing imbalances in demand and supply. The shilling has been depreciating by 0.4% weekly, which has continued to paralyze our country with debt since it has been increasing by 3 billion every day as the shilling continues to depreciate.
The main reason why the currency is depreciating is because of the overly demand for the dollar, and yet the supply is very little. So also there have been news or stories of overvaluation in the past, and according to Bloomberg, the shilling is now less overvalued. That is around 7% compared to like 20% in the last 1 or 2 years. So the less the currency is said or is overvalued, the lesser it becomes to sensitive to market news and depreciation against other currencies, especially the dollar. So up to around June of 2023, Kenya's debt had inflated by around 700 billion Kenya shillings. This was in tandem with about 13.3 thereabout depreciation of the Kenyan shilling. So this means that on average the Kenyan debt increases by around 38 billion for every unit of depreciation of the shilling. And because the shilling has been depreciating by an average of around 0.4% weekly, this means that the debt, Kenya's debt in dollars increases by around 3 billion every day. So the more the shilling depreciates, the more our debt that is in dollars increases.
Right, an expert opinion on that particular depreciating Kenyan shilling. Let's cross over to, we'll be crossing over to Naivasha in a bit, linking up with Willie Dennis Njiru, the whole conversation on the executive tiff with the judiciary as well. Quite a lot of sentiments being brought forth from both parties and both arms of the government, from the executive, the president and his allies, saying that, really defending the president's sentiments. Last week, but one on a Tuesday, talking about how various, judicial officers and corrupt, and the impunity really should be nabbed. And, from the judiciary, we did see last week having a number of lawyers, even judicial officers hitting the streets on Friday, hitting the streets really, and calling out for judicial impunity. Right. And still on the same matters, Chief Justice Martha Koome has come out guns blazing to defend the third arm of the government. In a press briefing held yesterday, Lady Justice Martha Koome, who is also chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, and president of the Supreme Court, has warned against looming anarchy and chaos, let alone contempt of court if the attacks on the judiciary persist. And that is what is the latest on that particular details. Fred, even as we wrap it up, but this is a conversation that has been going on as the year began. The whole first week of the year, the president's remarks and were really rejected, by litigants, including the senator. Among others.
Yes, I think yesterday's reaction by the Judicial Service Commission probably is the biggest reaction yet, because we expected that, because that is the biggest or one of the best routes for redress for anyone who feels that the judiciary has not served them as it should. Because yes, you can review, you can seek for your case to be reviewed, you can appeal at a higher court, plus if at all you have evidence of any malpractice against any judicial officer, then you go to the Judicial Service Commission. That is how it should be. And the JSC came out yesterday and said, we are here. Why don't you bring the evidence? Oh, yes. And well, the Deputy President has said on Thursday, he'll do exactly that. So we do wait and see, because I think it's a conversation that will definitely continue, even as we get into this year, into the months of this year.
And interestingly, also, President had said that they'll sit down with the litigants, including Busia Senator Okiya Omtatah, and even ask them tough questions. On that particular press briefing that the senator had, he was asked during the whole Q&A if he will be willing to actually have a sit down. And according to him, he is willing, but then it really has to be publicly. And well, it really has to benefit and be for the benefit of Kenyans. Then again, wait to see how, if the president will actually sit down with the litigants and ask them the tough questions.
Senator Omtatah is just one person. He doesn't have to be the one moving to court. Any Kenyan can move to court. If at all they feel that there's anything that has gone against the constitution, it's your right to go to court. So yes, they may talk to Senator Okiya Omtatah and he says, okay, fine, I hear you, but then again, someone else might take up the issue and go to court. And then the result will just be the same.
Well, we were hoping to have Willie Dennis Njiru in Naivasha, where Court Secretary Francis Atwoli is there, but then we'll be having him in our subsequent bulletins just to update us on what is happening. 49 minutes past the top of the hour.
Yes, as we wrap up, just a reminder of the games, the AFCON games happening today. We'll have Burkina Faso versus Mauritania at 5 p.m. Later on, Tunisia play their very first game against Namibia at 8 p.m. And the last match of the evening, Mali versus South Africa, coming away at 11 p.m. At least something to look forward to. So far, at least Senegal has proven its might. Ivory Coast as well. The other big giants in African football have been held to draws. That's Egypt. We've seen Nigeria held to a draw. We've also seen Algeria held to a draw as well. So let's wait and see. Big guns today, South Africa, Tunisia, and probably Burkina Faso.
Oh, yes.
Let's see how these games will go.
And this, I mean, you say big guns, and this reminds me that there's one of the dailies, the Tanzanian daily, is saying, hakuna timu ndogo katika AFCON.
It's probably because Tanzania is there, and it's definitely a timu ndogo. They, of course, they have to come up with better words for themselves.
But then the Mali versus South Africa will be played around 11 p.m. East African time. And the energy that South Africa fans might really bring to the stadium is one that I'm expecting and anticipating to see.
Okay, interesting. Before we wrap up, I think we can still talk to Willie Dennis in Naivasha for an update. You had earlier introduced him. Willie Dennis, very good morning. Finally, we can see you. Kindly update us on what's happening from your end.
Thank you very much, my colleague in our studios in the capital city, coming to you live from Lake Naivasha Resort here in Naivasha, where we are having an induction court, an induction session that has brought together the elite from our courts, that is our judges and magistrates, together with COTU, that is led by the Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli, who are going to be taking them through a session in regard to issues to do with labor laws and the in and out of court litigations that have been there over the years. And we are happy to be joined by Justice Bairam, who is going to be bringing us up to speed on exactly what we anticipate to have during this session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. This is Bairam Mongaya, Principal Judge of the Employment and Labor Relations Court of Kenya. The Employment and Labor Relations Court of Kenya is one of the superior courts in the new Constitution of Kenya 2010. The Employment and Labor Relations Court is established to hear and determine disputes relating to employment and labor relations. On this special occasion, the International Labour Organization, through its training institute, the International Training Center, ILO, based in Turin, Italy, is bringing the training to Kenya, right here in Kenya for the first time. And in this training, we are going to focus on the international labor standards. We are going to go through the scope and content of the international labor standards in matters of the nature of employment relationships, the standards on termination of employment, the standards on collective bargaining and workplace associations, trade unions. We are going to look at international labor standards on occupational safety and health, as well as international labor standards that govern alternative dispute resolution. We are going to look at international experiences and look at how our courts right here in Kenya have interpreted the standards and how best we can enhance the application of the international labor standards. These are standards already enshrined in our constitution, and this training would then enhance the capacity of our honorable judges to do justice at a world-class standard so that the workplace, workspaces, work relationships are just and fair to all the stakeholders, the employers and employees.
There's been a lot of bottlenecks in terms of implementing fully the law as it stands in the labor law. And as we understand, there has been in and out of court battles here and there, and we have seen violation of this by employers to a larger extent. What do you have to say in regard to marrying the international, what we are learning here, and implementing it?
Essentially, labor is a very important factor of production, aiding capital, land, and entrepreneurship. It is labor that infuses production and service delivery. And labor relations are consensual. They are free contracts. And so, but then the bargaining is not of equal arms. So what the law then does is to try and equalize the arms for bargain through providing for the right to inform the employee about the relationship, and secondly, enhancing the capacity of workers to bargain. And so we emphasize on international labor standards, which can make the workplace settled for best production and service delivery, and in a human rights perspective, so that all parties involved have got their rights protected and obligations performed. Alternative dispute resolution then becomes important, and as well as skills in strategic negotiations, the bargaining of the labor contract and relationships, and secondly, conciliating, mediating the disputes that may arise. And so the court becomes then the ultimate arbiter in event of disputes. But parties would be encouraged to engage in alternative dispute resolution. And in concluding the contracts, they need those important skills in strategic negotiation of give and take, ensuring that human rights are protected and obligations within the performance of the enterprise are upheld.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, sir. That is Justice Byram there, summarizing it up in what we anticipate to have from this session. You remember Francis Atwoli, the Secretary General for COTU, is expected to be here to grace the occasion, and CS Labour is also expected to be here and shed light in accordance to this. In our subsequent live links, that is Matukio, we are going to be bringing more on what is expected here and what is unfolding, and further come evening we are going to be having what has already taken place here in Naivasha. From me here, I summary it up and take it back to you, Stanley, so that you can close the session in style.
Right, thank you, Willie Dennis Njiru. Speaking of closing it in style, there's an African proverb that says, a roaring lion kills no game. Oh, yes.
You need to be silent.
Oh, yes.
For you to have...
Contextualize it in what he's talking about, the judiciary, executive, TIFF.
All right.
Who's the roaring lion there?
Well, this is where we dock for this morning. Morning Cafe comes to an end now. Thank you so much for keeping us company from 6 a.m. up until now. Join us tomorrow for another edition of Morning Cafe. Meanwhile, all the conversations we've had continue online on social media, on X at TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. My name is Fred Ndemuli. Have a lovely day.
And I'm used to Stanley Nyeringeti on behalf of the entire team. Have yourself a terrific Tuesday. Remember the